Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RV show. My name is Rohan.
And my name is Vinay. So today we'll be talking about the Equality Act. I'd like to start off by saying that a lot of the following information has been taken directly from the Human Rights Campaign website and from a Politico informational. Even though in the recent years we have made significant strides towards equality for all, there are still many rights that still need to be given. Our nation's civil rights laws protect people on the basis of race, color, national origin, and in most cases, sex, disability, and religion. But federal law does not explicitly provide non discrimination protections based on sexual orientation or gender identity. The need for these protections is clear. Nearly two-thirds of LGBTQ Americans report having experienced discrimination in their personal lives. The Equality Act would provide consistent and explicit non discrimination protection for LGBTQ people across key areas of life, including employment, housing, credit, education, public spaces and services, federally funded programs, and jury service. This was passed in the House. However, there was opposition from the Republicans. The act was passed with a vote of 224 to 206 in the House, which means that only 3 Republicans voted for the bill. Most Republicans say that they oppose the measure due to its perceived infringement on religious freedom, not out of discriminatory sentiment towards LGBTQ people. However, Republican Majority Taylor Greene harassed Representative Mary Newman over her transgender daughter and ruined the Republicans' efforts to sensitively communicate why they are opposed to the bill. For Democrats, Greene's comments about Newman's daughter only underscore the importance of passing the LGBTQ rights bill. While some Republicans have also made the effort to say that they believe protecting LGBTQ rights is important, but this particular bill is not the way to do that, Representative Greene again complicated that message when she hung an anti transgender sign outside of her office saying that there are only two genders, in direct response to Newman hanging a transgender pride flag outside her office. Now, we aren't sure if this will pass in the Senate. However, there are still a lot of advances in this topic that have happened as a result of the House passing this bill. So, Rohan, while you may not have read all the fine details of the bill that will be passed, on the surface, what are your judgments on this topic?
Yeah, so um, I guess first of all, I think it really shows that Biden is making an attempt, at least on some issues, to push his campaign promise. Um, and really, we've seen like one of the biggest points that he pushed on the campaign trail was ensuring equality, especially for those in the LGBTQ community, and pushing through this Equality Act, at least even through the House, is a major step forward. I will say, like on the point you made about it not passing in the Senate, I really am not sure if it's likely to pass in the Senate, because it will need um, many Republicans, like maybe like 10 Republicans to like flip in order to beat like the filibuster that's going on. And I don't see how likely that is, but we've seen a similar bill pass in the House in 2019, the Equality Act, but it didn't pass the Senate. My initial reactions to the bill is that I think it's a great bill because I think it really rolls back on some of the reforms that Trump attempted to make in pulling back discrimination protections against or protections for people of the LGBTQ community, and even policies that Trump implemented, things like the policy that prevented transgender people from being in the military, policies that rolled back on healthcare discrimination restrictions for people who are transgender. So I think this bill is really a great idea. I think it's really important, and hopefully it can pass the Senate.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also hope that passes the Senate. I think that statistic that nearly two-thirds of LGBTQ Americans experience discrimination in their personal lives really underscores how important it is that this bill gets passed so that those
Right.
tensions can be decreased. So, do
Yeah,
you
definitely.
Do you agree that the bill impedes religious rights, as the Republicans claim?
Well, I will say that in part, I do agree that it does impede religious rights, but I still think the bill is good for, I guess, like, let's say 3 reasons. I think the first reason is that generally, even if you're deeply religious, we've seen a lot of people, a lot of Catholic people, and a lot of Christian people who work for social justice organizations come out and explain that one of their key core religious beliefs is standing up for marginalized groups and marginalized communities. So, as much as being transgender or being gay could be considered a sin in some religions, it's important that you stand up for the people who don't really have a voice in society. And really, this bill does that. I think the second reason why I think this bill is going to be really important, even if it seemingly impedes on religious beliefs, is because I feel like in most religions, I'm not sure if you disagree with me here, Vinay, it's that, like, even if they might believe that it's a sin to be gay or to be transgender, it doesn't mean that you can't interact with those people, but it just means that those people might have done a bad thing. So I don't think that's grounds to all of a sudden not talk to them or not serve them and deny them their constitutional right to freedom and service. Um,
Mhm.
and I don't think that that necessarily impedes on religious beliefs because really those people are not like losing any sort of religious expression. I guess the final reason why I think this bill is extremely important, regardless of what you were talking about, is because I simply think that protection from discrimination for everyone in society far outweighs any possible religious impediment that goes on here. Because we've even seen people from with religious beliefs come out and say that they're in support of this bill.
Those are some great reasons why you support this. And while I do agree with you, and I especially like that second point that you made, I will say that some Republicans think that both religious freedom and LGBTQ rights should coexist. They're not trying to push down the importance of LGBTQ rights. However, they do believe that this isn't the right bill for that. So, what would you say, kind of in response to those that say that both of them should coexist, but this isn't necessarily the right bill to be passed, given everything that you know about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting point to make. And while I'm not like going against the personal character of some of these legislators, because I'm sure they might be great people who just believe different things, I really don't see any possible solution coming from the other side of the aisle. Really, on the Republican side, especially during Trump's administration, they actually rolled back a lot of protections for transgender and LGBTQ, for the LGBTQ community. So, I mean, as I said before, really, Trump implemented a lot of policies that were against them. And so, as much as they might say, yes, we support both religious beliefs and the LGBTQ community, they need to provide like an actual solution that's going to help integrate both into society. And I don't really see that happening. And I really think that bill could, this equality act could be a big step forward.
Yeah, I completely agree because while they say that both religious freedom and LGBTQ rights should coexist, at the same time, they're basically almost prioritizing religious freedom over LGBTQ rights when they've passed the previous bills that they've tried to pass during Trump's tenure. So I completely agree with you on that point. So also, how do you just view the Republican viewpoint, and do you think that Republican Representative Marjorie Greene, um, do you think that her comments kind of emphasize the growing divide between the two parties?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think it has. I think specifically, Marjorie Taylor Greene is just like an outlier in the sense that she has very radical beliefs that range from being completely against transgender people and insulting transgender people to believing and promoting QAnon conspiracies. Um, and so I do think there's a lot of Republicans who are also against her beliefs, but it does show that there is a deepening divide. I think both parties are starting to become a little bit more radical, and we really don't see a lot of compromise happening. And you can even see that from the vote, like only three Republicans flipped. So
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of radical beliefs within the Senate right now. And I feel like you see the complete opposite set of beliefs when you look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, literally saying, okay, there's only two genders, male and female. Then on the other side, you literally have a senator with a transgender child. So it really shows the differing beliefs within the US House. And I actually believe that that's a good thing because obviously the US doesn't just consist of people that are in the center. It consists of people who are extreme in their beliefs, where whether you believe that's right or not. So I think it's important to have all people's voices heard, even though I wouldn't really agree with all of those voices.
but do you think that there's like less people who are in the center now than there were in years past? I don't know. I feel like I can agree with you in the sense that having different diverse opinions is good, but to the point where they're so diverse that no change is being made and we're not seeing anyone represent what a majority of the people in the US want, it might not be that effective.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because, I mean, when you look at the news, you're just going to see Marjorie Taylor Greene and Mary Newman, who are people that are completely on the opposite sides of the spectrum on this.
Right.
However, we don't really see, I mean, at least I personally am not looking specifically at the Republicans and Democrats that are closer to the center. But I
Hmm.
do feel that nowadays the people who are more extreme have their voices heard more often, like heard more clearly in the public and especially in the media. You only really see the extreme viewpoints of certain senators. So while I don't really have any statistical evidence to say that is becoming more extreme, I do agree that the beliefs that are being portrayed in the media have become a lot more extreme than they were in the past.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess we've spent a lot of time talking about the Equality Act. I think let's get into the W segment now. I have five different stories to share today. The first one comes from Ireland. This one's particularly interesting because we really see, even during the pandemic, people are accomplishing major feats. So in Ireland, a 66-year-old Irish man plunged into freezing waters and swam for a mile, which claimed a Guinness World Record as the world's oldest ice mile swimmer. His name was Ger Purcell, and he finished his swim in 43 minutes and 28 seconds, swimming in below 23-degree water.
Wow. I think the first adjective that came to my mind was watery, but then I realized it's actually icy. And it's kind of makes no sense to me. How would you be able to swim in near icy conditions where, I mean, it feels like you're gonna get pneumonia if you're just gonna be in there for a few seconds, let alone swim for a whole mile. So I think that's just like a crazy feat to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, Vinay, I can barely get into water that's like 50 degrees, like like under 23-degree water. That's really impossible. The next story comes from Kentucky, where Kentucky resident Leah Holland declared herself the winner of a TikTok challenge for the dumbest tattoo, with her arm tattoo that read, quote, courageously and radically refused to wear a mask. Now, I know what you may be thinking, Vinay. She's an anti-masker, but in reality, this isn't true because apparently she wanted to get this tattoo for over 2 years, and finally she got it because she wanted to send a message of being true to yourself and not putting on a facade for others. And then 2 days after she got the tattoo, the first COVID case arrived in Kentucky. So she got the tattoo right before COVID happened, and all of a sudden she's being accused of being an anti-masker.
My opinion, that's whimsical. I mean, I would feel so bad for her just a few days after the COVID-19 pandemic goes. She's wearing a mask, she's going to a grocery store, and then the grocer asked her at the stop, hey, why do you have this tattoo that says don't wear a mask? I mean, that must be a crazy experience for her.
Exactly. Now, the third story is about space, Vinay. As you know, I'm heavily involved in speech and debate, and our
Mhm.
current topic for debate right now is about the United States Space Force, which is why I'm bringing up this hilarious story. So, when Trump was in presidency, he implemented a new military branch called the US Space Force with the goal of protecting US interests in space. But what's funny is that the people who work for the Space Force are called guardians, which means, Vinay, that they are the real life guardians of the galaxy.
So did you come up with this new nickname of being the real life guardians of the galaxy?
I think it was probably circling around social media.
That's a pretty witty joke in my opinion. Whoever originally came up with that is wonderfully gifted with wordplay. I mean, obviously it's a lot it's very important that we always have a good positive outlook on things that happen, and this was just a fun way to spread positive vibes throughout when coming up with this wonderful wordplay of being the real life guardians of the galaxy.
Nice. So the fourth story comes from Tennessee, where being a man's best friend has finally paid off for this dog. Tennessee businessman Bill Doris died late last year, but he left $5 million for his 8-year-old border collie Lulu. $5 million, Vinay, for his dog. What's even
Hmm.
better is that Doris's friend claims that one of the reasons why the dog was given so much money is that she was a good girl.
Well, I think it's a great attempt, but it's wonderfully flawed. Because isn't whoever the new owner of the dog just going to get all that money anyway? Like, I doubt that $5 million are actually going to be spent for
Well,
that dog.
what ended up happening was supposedly the dog's like caretaker was or the money was given not to the dog's caretaker, but they set up like a plan so that the money would like be paid in increments to the dog's caretaker. And so technically the
Interesting.
money was the dog's who was like paying the person to take care of her. But
Well, I guess instead of wonderfully flawed, I'd say wonderfully flawless. I mean,
yeah,
that's a
exactly.
that's a great way to structure something which I never even thought was possible, to
I
give
mean,
your whole will to a dog.
I think it's completely worth it. I mean, she was a good girl, Vinay. Like, you have to give the money, right?
I guess
Okay.
so.
The final story comes from Antarctica, where a Navy meteorologist lost his wallet when doing research in Antarctica 53 years ago. Now, this is exactly why he was surprised when the wallet showed up in the now 91-year-old's California mailbox. Supposedly, the wallet was found in 2014 when a building on Ross Island, Antarctica, was being demolished.
Wow. I mean, that's a heartwarming story because it's really nice to see that someone from Antarctica made sure to ship it back all the way to California once they found the wallet. But wow, 53 years. That means that this guy must have been only 38 years old when he lost this. And now he's 91 years old and he finally got that wallet back. That's
Yeah,
just
doing
crazy.
research in the 70s, the 60s, something like that. So, um, definitely a while ago, and somehow the wallet was intact. It had a lot of historical artifacts, so that's great. Well, I think that's it for the RV show today. Um, Vinay, do you have anything left to say?
Well, we'll make sure to come back next week with a very engaging story. Hopefully, you enjoyed today's RV show, and we'll see you next week.
What's up, everyone? Rohan here from the RV show. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to stay updated on all of our new content. Also, if you are looking for past episodes, check out our YouTube